My cousin's sister fabricated fake evidence. I cheated with his fiancée. I was beaten at the wedding. My family disowned me. And 5 years later, they came begging for forgiveness, but I already had a new life. I'm 32 years old. I work in graphic design here in Seattle, and honestly, I need to tell this story because there are still days when I wake up and can't believe all of this actually happened. I mean, the thing is that in June 2019, basically my entire family kicked me out of their lives for something I never did. And when I say my entire family, I mean all of them. Like, I had committed the worst crime in the world. And the craziest part is, they didn't even give me a chance to explain anything. I guess I should start from the beginning, when things were still normal, because looking back, I never saw coming what was going to happen. I grew up in a small town outside of Portland, one of those places where everyone knows everyone and gossip runs faster than the internet. My family was super close, or at least that's what I thought. We had the typical family gatherings every weekend, barbecues in the summer, all that stuff. My cousin Nicholas and I were like brothers. We literally grew up together because my aunt lived 2 blocks from my house. We played video games, went to the same gym, went out for beers on Fridays, everything. The guy was my best friend besides being my cousin. You know what I mean? Nicholas met Kimberly in 2017, I think, on some dating app or something like that. She was super nice, worked as an elementary school teacher, very polite, came from a really strict religious family. And the first time I met her was at one of those family gatherings, and she seemed like a good person, a bit shy maybe, but nice. Nicholas was crazy about her, like he was already talking about marriage after 6 months of dating, and I thought it was too fast, but what do I know? It wasn't my relationship. By 2019, they were already engaged and planning the wedding for June. The whole family was excited. My parents, my sister Alexis, who was like 22 at the time, my brother Christopher, everyone. The wedding was going to be at this kind of fancy venue in town, nothing too elaborate but not simple either, something in between. I was obviously going to be one of the groomsmen because we were super close, and Keith, Nicholas's best friend from college, was going to be the best man. Things started getting weird like 2 weeks before the wedding. Nicholas began acting kind of strange with me, like evasive. And when I asked him what was up, he said he was stressed about the wedding, that it was normal. I believed him because, well, organizing a wedding is a mess, right? But there was something in his tone of voice that didn't add up. Kimberly was also acting different, like nervous when I was around. But again, I thought it was pre-wedding nerves. And then came June 15, 2019, the day that literally changed my life forever. The wedding was scheduled for 4 inches the afternoon, and I arrived early at the venue around 2 to help with the final details. Everything seemed normal. There were people decorating, the DJ setting up his equipment, flowers arriving, the typical craziness before a wedding. Nicholas was in one of the back rooms getting dressed with Keith and some other friends, and I went back there to see if they needed anything. The moment I opened the door, Nicholas saw me and his face completely changed. I can't even describe the expression. It was like pure hatred, one of those looks that make you feel like you're the worst person on the planet. And before I could say anything, the guy lunged at me and punched me in the face. Just like that, no warning, nothing. He threw me to the floor and kept hitting me while screaming. "How could you do this to me? I trusted you with everything." Keith and the others had to pull him off because he literally wouldn't stop. I was on the floor bleeding from my nose, completely in shock, not understanding absolutely anything that was happening. I was asking him, "What did I do? What are you talking about?" And he just screamed louder. My dad and my brother Christopher came running in because of the noise, and instead of asking me if I was okay, my dad grabbed me by the arm and pulled me outside. He told me, "Get out of here now. I never want to see you again in my life." And I still didn't understand anything. Like, is this seriously happening? Outside the venue, there were like 50 people already, because obviously guests were starting to arrive, and everyone was looking at me like I was a criminal. My mom was crying. My sister Alexis was yelling things at me that I couldn't even process in that moment, and Christopher literally pushed me toward the parking lot. Nobody. And when I say nobody, I mean nobody. Asked me for my version of the story. 0. Not a single person. I managed to get to my car with my face all swollen and bleeding, and I drove to my house because I didn't know what else to do. My hands were shaking terribly. I felt like I was going to throw up, and I kept thinking, this has to be a nightmare. A moment now I'm going to wake up. But I didn't wake up. I got to my house. He was living alone at the time in a small apartment, like 10 minutes from town, and I cleaned up the blood, and that's when the text messages started. My inbox literally exploded. Messages from my whole family, from friends, from people I didn't even talk to regularly, all saying basically the same thing, that I was trash, that I had an affair with Kimberly, that I had betrayed them, that they never wanted to see me again. And I was reading those messages thinking, what the hell are they talking about? An affair with Kimberly? When? Where? None of it made sense. I tried calling my parents like 1,000 times, Nicholas, anyone who would answer, but nobody responded. The few who did answer told me they didn't want to hear my excuses, that they already knew everything, that there was proof. When I asked them to tell me what that supposed proof was, they hung up. My sister Alexis sent me a message that I still remember, word for word. You're a liar and a traitor. Don't ever contact me again. And she blocked my number. The wedding obviously got canceled. Total chaos. Kimberly's family also kicked her out. Her parents were super religious and basically excommunicated her or something like that. I found out later that they literally threw all her stuff out on the street. Her clothes, her books, her childhood photos, everything. Her parents were even worse than my family, like religious fanatic level, who believed their daughter had committed the biggest sin in the universe. I spent the next few days trying to figure out what had happened. I tried to contact Kimberly, but her number was also out of service. I looked for information on social media, but everyone had blocked me. I went to my parents' house, and my dad threatened to call the police if I didn't leave. I went to my aunt's, Nicholas's mom, and she didn't even open the door. I was completely alone, without answers, without anyone to listen to me. The worst part was that the rumor spread through the whole town in a matter of hours. At my work, he worked at a marketing agency at the time. People started treating me differently. My boss called me into his office like 3 days after what happened and told me he had received complaints from clients who didn't want to work with me because they had heard about what I did. I explained to him it was a lie, that I hadn't done anything, but he told me I needed to take some time so things could calm down. He basically fired me without saying it directly. I'd go to the supermarket and people would look at me funny. I literally felt the stares and heard the whispers. Once a lady yelled at me in the middle of the cereal aisle, "Shameless, how could you do that to your family?" And everyone turned to look at me. I left the supermarket without buying anything because I felt like I was going to have a panic attack right there. 2 weeks later, I managed to contact a friend from college who didn't live in town, Daniel, and he was the only one who listened to me without judging. I told him everything. Well, the little I knew, and he helped me investigate a bit. It turned out that the story everyone believed was that Kimberly and I had been seeing each other in secret for months, that we had been seen together in various places, and that someone had told Nicholas right before the wedding with photographic evidence or something like that. But nobody showed me that supposed evidence. Nobody told me who had started the rumor. Nothing. Daniel suggested that maybe I should leave town, start over somewhere else, because the situation was unsustainable. And he was right. I mean, I couldn't get a job. My family had disowned me. I had no friends. People harassed me on the street. It was like living in a horror movie, but small town version where everyone believes you're the villain. In August 2019, like 2 months after the disaster, I packed my things and moved to Seattle. I sold everything I couldn't fit in my car, basically gave away furniture and stuff like that, and drove the 3 hours to Seattle without looking back. I had some savings that would last me like 3 months if I was careful, and the hope that far from that town, I could start over. I later found out that Kimberly had also left. She moved to Chicago. We never talked after what happened. We had no way to contact each other, and honestly, I think we were both too traumatized to try. I don't know how things went for her those first months, but I imagine just as horrible as for me. Seattle was weird at first. I got a tiny apartment in a kind of old but cheap building and started looking for work like crazy. The thing was, I had a gap in my resume that was hard to explain, and when I mentioned I came from that town near Portland, Some recruiters made weird faces, like they had heard something. It's incredible how gossip can travel even to another city. I finally got a job at a graphic design company. Nothing glamorous, but it paid the bills. My coworkers were cool, and nobody knew anything about my past, which was a huge relief. I introduced myself as Anthony, who just moved to Seattle looking for new opportunities, and that was it. I had no social media, didn't talk about my family, basically reinvented my identity. The first years in Seattle were lonely, honestly. I worked, came home to my apartment, watched Netflix, slept, repeated. I didn't trust anyone enough to make real friends, because I was afraid they'd discover my story and judge me without knowing the truth. It was like living in this emotional limbo, where I was physically present, but emotionally disconnected from everything. But life went on, you know, because that's what life does. In the summer of 2021, like 2 years after moving, I went to a barbecue organized by a coworker. Normally, I didn't go to those things, but that day I thought, what the hell? I need to try to have a normal social life. And that's where I met Jennifer. Jennifer worked in human resources at a tech company. She was 290, was like 29 too at that time, was super outgoing and funny, completely opposite to me. We started talking about random things, TV series, best places to eat tacos in Seattle, those kinds of light conversations, and I realized that for the first time in years I was genuinely laughing. She asked for my number before I left the barbecue and I gave it to her, although part of me thought she would never text me. But she did text me. The next day, actually, and we started going out. At first, they were super casual dates, coffee shops, walks downtown, things like that. She'd ask me about my family and I'd give vague answers like, we don't talk much, they live far away, generic excuses. Jennifer didn't push, which I appreciated. But I knew that eventually I'd have to tell her the truth if this was going to be something serious. About 3 months into dating, I decided to tell her everything. I invited her to my apartment. We ordered Chinese food, and I told her, I need to tell you something important about my past, and if after this you don't want to see me again, I'll understand. And I told her the whole story, from the wedding day to my move to Seattle. I showed her some of the horrible messages I had saved on my phone. I explained that I never had an affair with Kimberly, that I didn't even know where that accusation came from. Jennifer listened without interrupting. And when I finished talking, she was quiet for a moment. That felt eternal. I was mentally prepared for her to get up and leave, but instead she hugged me and said, that's terrible. Nobody deserves to go through something like that. And I believe you. I don't know what I did to deserve someone like her, but those words meant more than I can express. Our relationship got more serious after that. Jennifer helped me process a lot of the trauma I was still carrying, encouraged me to go to therapy. I went for like 6 months, and it helped a ton, and basically reminded me that I deserved to be happy despite what had happened. We moved in together in 2022 to a bigger apartment near Capitol Hill. Adopted a cat named Mochi, Jennifer's choice. I wanted to name him Taco, but she won, and built this quiet life I never thought I could have. The funny thing is that Jennifer and Kimberly ended up being friends in a completely random way. Turns out they both listened to the same true crime podcast and started interacting in the podcast's Facebook group, and when they realized they lived relatively close, well, Seattle and Chicago are far, but both in the United States, they started talking more often. Kimberly told her story. Jennifer told her mine. And they realized it was us. Like, what are the odds of that? Kimberly was doing well. She had met a guy in Chicago named Brandon. He worked in software development or something like that, and they were living together. She had also gone to therapy and was rebuilding her life. We never talked directly, her and I, like there was too much shared trauma, but I was glad to know she was doing better. And so things were quiet until October 2024, literally a month ago. I was in the apartment on a Saturday afternoon. Jennifer had gone to yoga, and there was a knock on the door. I opened it without thinking much, and there was Nicholas standing at my entrance. I hadn't seen him in 5.5 years, and seeing him there was like a punch in the stomach. He looked different, older, had a beard now, but it was definitely him. My first reaction was to slam the door in his face, but he put his foot in to prevent it and said, "Please, I need to talk to you." I know I don't deserve even a minute of your time, but please. I don't know why I let him in. Maybe curiosity, maybe the part of me that still remembered when we were friends. We sat in the living room, and there was this super awkward silence where neither of us knew how to start. Finally, Nicholas spoke and told me, I came to ask for your forgiveness and to tell you the truth about what happened that day. He explained that everything had been a lie, that there was never an affair between Kimberly and me, that a woman named Linda from the gym where he trained had made up the whole story because she was obsessed with him and wanted to separate him from Kimberly. Linda had apparently created fake text messages, edited photos to make it look like Kimberly and I were together, had woven this web of lies so elaborate that Nicholas believed her without questioning anything. I asked him how he had discovered the truth, and he told me that Linda had confessed like 2 months ago when Nicholas started dating another woman. Linda had a breakdown or something and told him everything, told him she had ruined his wedding because she thought that if Kimberly wasn't in the picture, Nicholas would eventually notice her. All that devastation, all those destroyed lives, because of one woman's sick jealousy that Nicholas barely knew. Nicholas was crying in my living room, saying he was sorry 1,000 times, that he had been an idiot for believing Linda without investigating, that he had destroyed our lives for nothing. And I was sitting there processing all of this, feeling this mix of rage and relief, because I finally had answers but also confirmation that my family had abandoned me without giving me a chance to defend myself. I asked him about the rest of the family, and he told me that everyone already knew the truth. Linda had confessed publicly, had even gone to my parents and Kimberly's parents to apologize. The news had spread through town just as fast as the original gossip, and apparently now everyone wanted to talk to me, ask for forgiveness, fix things. Nicholas gave me new phone numbers for my parents, my sister, told me everyone wanted to reconnect with me, and then he asked me if we could be family again, if I could forgive him. I stared at the guy who was once my best friend, the guy who hit me without giving me a chance to explain, and I told him I needed time to process all of this, that I couldn't give him an answer at that moment. Nicholas left after giving me his number and telling me he would wait until I was ready to talk. When Jennifer got home and I told her, she got furious. She told me my family didn't deserve forgiveness, that they had abandoned me when I needed them most, that now they couldn't just show up and expect everything to go back to how it was before. And she was right, but there was also this part of me that wanted answers, that needed to confront the people who had hurt me. The next few days, messages and calls started coming in. My mom called crying, asking for forgiveness, saying it had been the worst mistake of her life not listening to me. My dad sent a long email. An email, seriously? Explaining that he had been carried away by anger and that he wanted to have a relationship with me again. Alexis sent me like 20 messages in a row saying she was young and immature back then, that now she understood she was wrong. Christopher didn't even apologize directly, just sent a generic message like, it would be good to talk. Jennifer contacted Kimberly, and she was going through the same thing. Her family was also trying to reconnect with her. Jennifer, Kimberly, Brandon, and I talked on a video call to decide what to do. Kimberly and I agreed that we needed closure, a chance to tell our families exactly how they had hurt us, but on our terms, not theirs. We organized a meeting for early November at a neutral restaurant in Portland with both families present. We told them we would only come if Linda was also there to confess publicly in front of everyone. They agreed to everything, probably because they felt guilty. I don't know. The meeting was a week ago. Jennifer came with me, and Brandon with Kimberly, because we needed support, and frankly, we didn't trust any of them. We got to the restaurant, and there they all were. My parents, my siblings, Nicholas, Kimberly's parents, aunts, uncles, cousins, like 15 people total, and Linda, sitting in a corner, looking miserable. Linda confessed everything in front of everyone. She explained how she had fabricated the messages, how she had manipulated photos, how she had convinced Nicholas that Kimberly and I were having an affair. She did it with this monotone voice, no real emotion, and I wondered how someone could be so twisted. She said she was in therapy now, that she understood what she did was wrong, as if that was enough. After Linda finished, my parents started with their apologies. My mom was crying, saying she loved me, that she should never have turned her back on me. My dad said he was ashamed of his actions, that he wanted to make up for lost time. Alexis and Christopher also apologized, same as Kimberly's parents and other family members. Everyone was basically saying the same thing, that they were sorry, that they had made a mistake, that they wanted to be a family again. And when everyone finished, Kimberly and I spoke. We told our families exactly how we felt, unfiltered. I told them they had abandoned me in the worst moment of my life, that they had called me a liar without proof, that they had made me a pariah without giving me a chance to defend myself. Kimberly told her parents they had thrown her out on the street like trash, that their love was conditional and that had marked her forever. We told them their apologies were 5 years late, that they couldn't expect us to forgive and forget just because now they knew the truth. I explained that I had built a new life in Seattle, that I had people who supported me without knowing my full story, that Jennifer had been more family to me in 3 years than they had been my whole life. My dad tried to interrupt, saying that family is forever, that everyone makes mistakes. And I answered him that family doesn't throw you out on the street without listening to you, that family doesn't abandon you without evidence, that they had decided I was guilty and that was it. So don't come at me with that speech now. The meeting ended with us making it very clear that we weren't going to run back into their arms. We told them that maybe someday we could consider having some kind of limited relationship, but it was going to take time, a lot of time. And they needed to understand that we weren't the same people as 5 years ago. Nicholas tried to talk to me privately before I left, but I told him no. That everything I had to say I had already said. He looked devastated. And part of me felt sorry. But the truth is, he was the one who hit me that day. He was the one who believed a lie without asking me anything. Jennifer and I went back to Seattle the next day. Kimberly and Brandon also returned to Chicago. We've been talking about all of this, processing the emotions, and we agree we did the right thing. We don't owe those people anything, and the fact that they now know the truth doesn't erase the damage they caused. 2 days ago, I went with Jennifer to see the Space Needle because she had never been up there. She's been living in Seattle for years but never went. Can you believe it? And while we were up there looking at the city, I realized this is my life now. Seattle, Jennifer, Mochi, the cat, my job that I like, friends who know me as I am now and not for my past. And honestly, I'm good with that. I'm thinking about proposing to Jennifer soon, maybe in December when we go to Whistler to ski. I have the ring hidden in my sock drawer, super original, I know, and I'm waiting for the right moment. Kimberly told me Brandon is also going to propose soon. They're thinking about a small spring wedding with just close friends. It's weird how life takes these turns. 5 years ago, I thought my life was over, that I could never recover from that betrayal. And now I have this life I never imagined, with people who truly love me, without conditions, without judgments. I don't know if I'll ever completely forgive my family. Maybe yes, maybe no, but it doesn't keep me up at night anymore like it used to. My mom still sends messages from time to time, old photos of when I was a kid, saying she misses me. Sometimes I respond with a thanks or an emoji, nothing more. Alexis follows me on Instagram from a new account I made recently. Jennifer convinced me to get back on social media. We haven't really talked since the meeting, but I see her stories sometimes. Christopher never contacted me again after that day at the restaurant, and honestly, that doesn't surprise me. And the thing is, I learned that the family you choose can be stronger than blood family. Jennifer, Brandon, Kimberly, my co-workers who became friends, and the owner of the coffee shop where I go every morning, who already knows my order by heart, that's my family now. And that's enough for me. I still have days where I think about everything that happened and get angry, where I wonder how they could have believed me capable of something like that without questioning it. But those days are less and less frequent, and when they come, Jennifer is there to remind me that I'm not in that place anymore, that we built something better. I don't know what's going to happen in the future with my biological family. Maybe eventually we can have some kind of superficial relationship, like seeing each other at Christmas and acting civil. Maybe not. For now, I'm focusing on my life here, on the people who never doubted me, on building the future I want to have. And if someone reads this and is going through something similar, the only thing I can say is that yes, you can get through it. It's not easy. And there are days where you think you won't be able to, but you can. Surround yourself with people who value you, seek professional help if you need it, and don't be afraid to start over if necessary. Your life didn't end just because people who are supposed to love you decided to turn their backs on you. Last week, Jennifer asked me if I regretted going to that meeting with my family, if it would have been better to simply ignore them. I told her no, that I needed to tell them how I felt, that I needed that closure to be able to move forward completely. And I think it was true, because since that day I feel lighter, like I could finally close that chapter and focus totally on this new one I'm writing. And that chapter, with Jennifer, with our life in Seattle, with the possibility of a future together, is much better than anything I left behind.